What happens when there's not enough module-supported content for the GM to run for the group? Well, they have to take matters into their own hands, and that's exactly what I had to do. I had to get crazy and throw Freeport at them, and that's where they're stuck right now. And we're about to jiggly-woogly mess with the canon even more by introducing a race of creature that is not even meant to exist in Thadis. Hit it. Gabe and Agnes are in the room with the chests, and there are 5 skeletons in there, and the skeletons come at them. Now, Tanador and Karak and the Mabari Blacktail is on the outside in the corridor, and the door is shut, but they decided not to actually board it up and sort of trap them in, like the discussion was going there. So, that combat breaks out inside, and Gabe is pretty much ripping them up very well, and Agnes is holding her own as well. I mean, her being, as she is, a berserker of dual-wielding repute. And then, there's an ambush from behind, out in the corridor. Karak and Tanador are set upon. They hear something coming. They try and back into the room to get away from it, and they see 5 degenerate serpent people. Yeah. So anyway, degenerate serpent people. And yes, they got the poisoned attack. Wait a minute, they don't exist in Dragon Age. How do you know? How do you know? If you were to do it in a way that like I'm doing it, where you say, in Thadis, they aren't meant to exist. That's quite right. What you are seeing here is something that's not meant to exist. Congratulations! Codex entry! And I've pretty much got it, where the only place they will exist underground, hidden from people, hidden as the truth hidden, is Freeport itself. And there's a whole history that goes all the way back there. And my suggestion is that these were creatures back in their heyday who lived on the planet like before elves and dwarves, let alone humans. So we're talking about the proper ancient races here. And you can't dispute that that's possibly could have had. The planet could well have had creatures on it like that. Well, there's one tiny vestige of that left over until everyone discovers it and then kills them off, I'm sure. I suppose think about them in terms of, like, in Warhammer Fantasy, the Skaven. They aren't meant to exist either, are they? They're just supposed to be the tail that spooks children out and makes them go to bed. Or the Skaven will come for you. And whenever they're seen, it's reported as, oh no, it was Beastmen. It was Beastmen you saw. They get all MIB on your ass. Yeah. Oh, except in, really lower numbers. So, down here, mysteriously, serpent people, and they are all connected into this worship of the unspeakable one. The yellow sign. Cthulhu much? That's right, Cthulhu crossover to Dragon Age. Look what you've made me have to do, BioWare. Oh, BioWare. Oh, look what you've made me do. So anyway, oh God. Well, I like it, and to me, it fits. And it's a way of exploring, saying, do you know what? This extraplanar kind of dimensional thing, maybe some of the mages that have tapped into that have perhaps got their own spell set. As long as you keep something like that very, very small and very, very localized, you don't kill the theme of the planet. Because, they're abroad at the moment, and as soon as they're back in Ferelden, everything's back to the norm again. Everything's back to how they know it to be in the games. But the fact is, until Dragon Age 3 comes, then you don't really know what it's like to travel abroad anyway. So, degenerate serpent people, they managed to lock them out, and Karak shoved his back up against the door, and somehow, with a strength might test, and I don't know how, all serpent people battering on it from the other side, he managed to hold them all back with just his back up against the door. I don't know how. It's one of those funny things where the dice, you roll the dice, it can't work, and it worked, and everyone's laughing. So that's always good. That's the moments that you want. Those are the moments that keep you going in these games, the things that surprise you. Now, eventually, once the skeletons have been dealt with, so obviously they've separated the two off so they can deal with the skeletons first, then attention is turned to the door, and Karak runs away from the door, and the warriors run into the doorway and block the serpent people trying to come in, and it all goes off. And we had a Envenom proc, which was a crow's poison style thing instead, so not really much, just like an extra D6 wherever the venom could take place. And yeah, I'm seeing them more as like the proper like slithery serpent people, so with the lower half that's slithery, kind of like a sort of D&D type serpent person. And what are they called? Yuanti or something? And obviously I'm very, very inspired by things like Naga and stuff like that as well. Once you get into the technicalities of, how can things like this possibly exist as well, then you have a lot of other potential explanations, like, I don't know, lyrium mutation. If there's like a vast amount of lyrium in a particular natural habitat, then it could have that effect on organic matter and so forth. But I suppose that's half of the beautiful thing about being a GM in your own world, in your own shard of Thedas, that you don't have to justify anything to anyone. You are the boss, and as long as you are doing things in a way that at the end of it, the players feel convinced by, even if they are sort of surprised initially, then you're winning. You're winning. My players, it was like water off a duck's back. And it was like, yeah, all right, serpent people. And I was like, they don't exist in Thedas. Ooh. They were like, yeah, right, let's get the dice up to kill it. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I thought this was going to be about what Codex entry for it. There's a surprise in that. And they were like, quick, kill it with fires. Actually, it was more like kill it with rocks, but in stones. In Karak's case, yes. So it was an easy enough fight. They weren't meant to be lethal enemies, but they said, how the bloody hell did they come in from behind us like that? Well, it turns out that there is actually a secret passage that leads down from a cavern all the way down, and one of the entrances is into the treasure room that they're currently in with the 4 chests, and the secret passage then carries on back round to that area where the trapdoor was in the floor, and there was a wall with a suspect place where it looked like it could have had a door, but there was no door there. It was just the door on the right to the initiation chamber, the octagonal one, and then straight ahead. So that is the other secret entrance. So they've worked their way round in behind the party, and because the party didn't find the secret entrance and take them on in the tunnel, they could have potentially had them coming in on the back and fighting both at once. But the party, being completely imba as they are, found a way to stop that from happening and ensure their own survivability. There we go. So hats off to them. I keep trying to kill them. No, I'm not trying to kill them. I'm really not. I try to present dangerous situations that I think will be exciting and challenging. And I'm rooting for the players during all this. I'm not rooting for the baddies. The only time I find myself rooting for the baddies is in situations when there's like fun stunts and things like that I've built into them, and I'd really like to see the bad guys use those stunts at least once or twice because I've been really creative thinking them up. And then I'll be thinking, oh no, don't kill him too quick, or how can give him a chance here, and that kind of thing. But ultimately, I want the players to succeed. But I also quite like the idea of the world being so dangerous that if they make a genuine mistake, and it's not just, I've rolled badly on the dice multiple times, if they make a poor decision, that they could well perish. And I think that's how I like to run the game, with always that feeling in mind that could happen. And I like the players to feel that death is always just around the corner for them. So the group move on, not worrying too much about it, just saying, oh, well, look at that. Bunch of slithery things. Well, it doesn't matter whether they're meant to exist or they're not, because they're dead now. That's all that matters. That's how the group kind of look at it. They've got this kind of roll all over it attitude. Especially the Avar Barbarian, of course. Tanadal. What are you going to do, hey? He's mad and he's got his own law. Ah, boy. Well, anyway, they carry on into the room and find the 4 chests. They're very, very difficult to pick the locks. They could smash them, but if they smash them, they're going to do damage to any glass bottles that might be inside. Potions. Exactly. Well, Gabe was able to pick all of the locks with a wonderful rolling, and with them all open, they were able to get at the lutes, which was quite a lot of money. There was a fair few gold sovereigns in there, overall collectively, and a number of potions and things as well. Health potions and lyrium potions, and there was some potions of skill and fortune. Now, the only thing with the potions of skill and fortune, which basically give you 2 extra stunt points for that combat that you drink it, was that, meaning that you can, go above to like 8 if you roll a 6. Fun stuff. It wasn't marked as such. Now, Talador's taken this before, so he'd sort of know it, but he's also daft. So I took all of that into account, and the bottle was labelled with only the initials. So POFAS, Potion of Fortune and Skill. And they managed to work it out eventually, what it was, by him even dipping a finger in and taking a little taste. That's what he's like. You'll find a mysterious potion. Oh, I don't know what it does. Dip a finger, have a taste. Luckily for him, it was indeed a potion of fortune and skill, and I was able to say, well, you think you've tasted this before, but you're not totally sure how. Just left them like thinking about it and thinking about the label and the kind of things I'd said to him, the combination of looking at the label, and then they finally worked it out. Potion of fortune and skill. So yeah, cool. He likes them. Get all of that stuff. I don't remember how much, like I say, but it was stuff. And carry on down the way. And then they open a door to a library. Well, a study, really, off to the right. And again, it had a lot of heretical books with the sort of titles that they wouldn't really want to read. And Karak thought he'd get a bit above himself and try reading one of them. And the effects were not very nice on him, and they further damaged his already poor broken psyche at the moment. And of course, remember, this extraplanar essence has somehow managed to wind its way into his soul. And he can feel this lure coming from it, which will also potentially leave him susceptible to desire demons. But hey, that's another thing altogether, You imagine that, being caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, where you've got a desire for the extraplanar knowledge, right? And a desire demon latches onto that desire to try and deliver you to that. It's normally, right, you'd be going into something that you at least perceive as nice. but that would literally be frying pan into fire scenario, wouldn't it? It's kind of there, and it's just kind of lurking. So they managed to avoid all of that, although they did pick up an interesting clue that there's quite a lot going on. They found planning notes about the lighthouse and stuff to do with that as well, and also something about good work and I'll be there soon for the time that's coming and all this kind of thing. There's a big time coming, which shows them that this is actually part of a much bigger picture, and there's a big association of a network involved here. It isn't just like a localized cult. And they push on further down the way, and they come to Boss Room! That's right. And now here is where things got interesting. They open the door and head on in, and as they do so, Karak ends up with this ink scrawling suddenly appearing on his wrist. And he looks at it and he can't decipher the arcane language there. However, there is a compulsion in his head telling him, you will kill your party members now. You will kill your allies. And he refused, and then he was affected as per the rack spell, meaning for the entire encounter in this case, he was -2 to all rolls. And there was an altar in this room, and a big statue thing of the Unspeakable One, all tentacles, a go-go, and there's pillars that go back, and either side of the pillars are a couple of crossbow-wielding, chainmail-wearing cult attendants, and in the middle is the cult leader at the altar, and it's Milos from the Temple of the God of Knowledge. So he stands up and does a little bit of talk, and then it's on. Now, he's a caster, and he's got power to these unusual arcane energies. So I thought, how the hell am I going to begin to portray him in Dragon Age? So what I did was I used the Benmian wizard from the Midgard Age Bestiary. It's very interesting and very powerful caster. The guys managed to get the two ads down pretty well, running straight for the pillars and trying to use those as cover to get to the guys. But they found that Milos was able to hold them all off, and he was using a number of training life tactics like that, and he was able to crowd control, or CC as we call it in like the MMO game circuit, multiple members of party, one after the other in different ways, paralyze one and do something to another one, and it left them just out so that he could concentrate his damage on particular party members. Now, this fight went on a very long time, longer than I would normally like a fight to go on. And so there is the implicit danger of having a foe which is so powerful, and a party that is so powerful that it's going to take, if he does everything he can versus the party doing everything they can, they will just nullify each other for a while, which, on paper is a good place to be, because it sounds like it's a nice, balanced, structured fight. But the reality of it is, if you can't run it fast, then it's going to drag, and it went on way too long. So, in the end, I had his defensive slow wearing them down technique, which probably would have failed anyway, given their larger numbers, turn into a, oh crikey, do you know what, I'm going to try and get one dead, and then revert back to that, because then I might actually kill one. So he suddenly sped up the damage output on party members, and wasn't able to quite get one dead, but had released all of his crowd controls long enough for them to wear off while he was concentrating on actually trying to hurt the party now. And at that point, they managed to get in there, rolled a bit lucky on the length of rounds that some of them will last for, and they managed to take him down eventually. He had a very large health pool indeed, over 100, which is always funny. And again, he's able to use these things like, oh, it's the blood magic school, yet it is just cast, and it's not even had to be rolled to be cast because it's the ink thing, and it's as per rack. It doesn't have to obey the rules. He's a caster of an absolutely different type for that one particular spell. The others were obviously rolling to hit and such as well. But his options were, you'll find with casters that they usually don't have a big toolbox of spells in D&D, in Dragon Age, that they have to, you can kind of tell how they're going to fight, whether they're going to be more supportive, buff, debuff, whether they're going to be more of the healer supportive type, or whether they're going to be more of a damage dealer, or whether they're going to be more of a controlling malignant sort, more like a warlocky type like this one was. And I suppose something that would have put a time limit on the fight could have been interesting, actually. Could have been some other ways to handle it, but I didn't foresee before going into it that the fight was going to potentially drag on like it did. And, each session teaches you something new, so I know if I use one of those wizards from the bestiary again, to be mindful that I need to put something else in there, really, to incentivize the party to roll quicker. And I've actually just recently done a video on this anyway about speeding up combat. And I think a lot of it has to come down to the brutality of saying, do you know what, you've taken too long deciding what to do, so you've spent this turn wondering what to do. And I suppose sometimes you do that to give everyone else the chance, not getting bogged down. They made their kill eventually. And as Milos was laying there, it turns out that his apparently human form started reverting into a serpent person. And then they're left with the massive implication of, oh gosh, does that mean that there's loads of other serpent people up there somewhere, pretending to be us? That's the implication, yes. And the other twist was that the serpent person he reverted into wasn't the deformed type, the degenerate kind. It was a more of a pure, proper-looking one, which suggested, oh, some of these might be about running the show, and they could be more dangerous because look at this one. Oh, huge implications there. The guys didn't explore the place any longer. I think they just wanted to get the hell out of there. Also, by the way, I must add, they were in there to try and find poor Lucius, who had disappeared, been kidnapped by Milos, of course, and he'd been tied up behind the altar. Now, during the fight, I'd run it so that when the guys were running forward, I said, actually, you're seeing like some kind of shadow, like movement behind the altar, tucked away out of sight. You can see it on the back wall, and it's kind of doing that. So Tanador went and explored it during the fight, and this was another one of those things to sort of draw his attention out. And then I tell him, oh, it's Lucius tied up, and he's wriggling about, trying to get out. So they'd found Lucius during the fight, but by telling them that they can see something that relates to Lucius during it, it gives them one of these things to look at. And it is just kind of a red herring in a way, because there's nothing that will aid them in the combat. Sometimes that will also happen. There are distractions in a battle, and it took Tanador out of the fight momentarily to check what it was, leaving his party on their own. So anyway, they went topside, and they spoke to the temple of the god of knowledge contact who'd put them onto the mission. He'd paid them up what he could, but obviously the real money was to be found in the loot chests. Because this poor guy, he'd paid them what he could, like 50 silver each. But the truth of the matter was that they've all taken a vow of poverty. And, he's had to risk life and limb just to get this money to pay the party to try and get Lucius back. But got Lucius back now. He's quite disturbed by the ordeal. And the party thought, right, do you know what? We're going to just leave it at that. We're going to get ready to leave, and that's fine. But another fun thing was that Gabe pulled out that bone pipe, by the way, the one that he'd stolen off the captain previously, and handed it to Karak and says, oh, there you go. Oh, and there's a silver tinderbox while we're at it as well. I nicked that. And he's been doing a lot of that sort of pickpocketing elements as well, here and there. A little bit of extra bonus cash. So they had to get ready to leave. Now, Agnes is still poor as heck, so they had to collectively pull together to pay for her. And we've had transport from there to Cumberland cost 1 gold 20. And, it's another thing to keep them spending their money, but also take advantage of the fact that the route is being well travelled at the moment, and it's a hot route right now, and there's a lot of ships going about that way. And, for all we know, like Cumberland might have increased the docking charges while the tournament's on. So it might mean that, again, all the fares are up higher than they would be, and so on and so forth. These kind of problems. Inflation. One person doing something, trying to take advantage on one end, and there's a knock-on system. So they were departing on the ship. But I will leave you with this parting thought. As the ship was pulling away in the night, and the beautiful reflections of Freeport on the water, which looks beautiful from a distance, all of the colours and the lights, but not very nice when you're actually there, part of it. Off to the side, they saw a golden glowing colour. Do you remember when they were on about losing the Stein, Karak and Tanador, and they could have sworn that the tavern that they'd been in and lost it, it was the golden something. It was golden something. Golden. That was always the running gag. And they couldn't remember. Well, they both stare at this place back in Freeport. And it's a drinking establishment as well as other things. It's got a huge coin at the top. And the name of it is the Gold Den. They stare. Oh, it must be golden something. So, that's the kind of fun you can have with this. They stare at it. They stare at each other. They stare back at it again. And Tanador's like, Karak, do you think... And Karak's like, yeah, that's that bloody place where you lost my Stein. We've been here before, we're drunk, that's why we can't remember it. A couple of buffoons, they really are. I suppose we can't jump in the water and swim back, can we? No, you can't. You're on your way to Cumberland now, the ship is too far out. So they're off to do the tourney now. But it gives them a reason to come back to Freeport. Now, why might I have given them a reason to do that, do you think? Maybe it's because there are 2 more parts to this Freeport module trilogy. Maybe. We'll have to see. But next up is the tourney. And until next time, I will see you in the arena.